By the mid-1950s, Edward Gein's obsessions had escalated into a horrifying reality. What had begun as grave robbing now crossed into murder. And the victims were not just statistics, they were real women, with families, with lives, whose stories would be forever intertwined with Gein's dark legacy. This is the story of Mary Hogan, Bernice Worden, and the twisted path that led Edward Gein to become the Plainfield Butcher. Who was Mary Hogan, and why did she disappear so mysteriously in 1954? Mary Hogan, the first known victim of Edward Gein, was a bar owner in Plainfield, a woman in her 40s, independent and known in town for her warm but no-nonsense personality. In 1954, Mary disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Her death was initially unexplained, and the local community believed she had simply moved or vanished. It wasn't until years later, after Gein's arrest, that the horrifying truth came to light. Gein confessed to killing Mary Hogan, revealing the dark rituals and motives behind his acts. Mary's murder was not spontaneous. Gein had been obsessed with death and control, particularly over women. Her body was mutilated post-mortem, and items were taken from her remains to satisfy Gein's compulsions, items that would eventually reveal the depth of his depravity. What did police find inside Gein's house that changed everything? Gein's approach to murder was methodical yet warped. He was not a man who killed in public rage. His killings were private, intimate, and ritualistic. With Mary Hogan, he employed techniques that mirrored his fascination with human anatomy and artifacts. Body parts were carefully removed, preserved, and sometimes transformed into macabre objects, like masks or keepsakes. This signature would later become infamous in criminal psychology, illustrating how Gein's mental state translated fantasy into physical action. Who was Bernice Worden, and what happened that cold November morning in 1957? 3 years after Mary Hogan, Edward Gein would strike again. Bernice Worden, a 58-year-old hardware store owner, disappeared on the morning of November 16, 1957. That morning, Worden's truck was seen leaving the store. Few customers visited that day. Locals assumed the quiet streets were due to hunting season. By 5 p.m., Worden's son, Frank, arrived at the store and found the cash register open and bloodstains on the floor. What Frank would discover would shock the nation. Gein had captured Worden, shot her with a .22 caliber rifle, and brought her body back to his farm. But what followed was something that would be studied in criminal psychology and forensic science for decades. What horrors were discovered inside Gein's shed? Bernice Worden's body was discovered in a shed on the Gein property, hanging upside down, tied at the ankles to a crossbar, her torso arranged in a manner described as like a deer. But the horror did not stop there. Gein removed various body parts with precision, driven by obsession, ritual, and psychosis. He stored the head in a burlap bag, preserved the heart in a plastic bag in front of the stove, and collected skin, bones, and organs for his macabre projects. Items recovered included skulls mounted on bedposts, female skulls in bowls made from crania, a corset made from a woman's torso, leggings fashioned from human leg skin, masks from female facial skin, Mary Hogan's face mask in a paper bag, Bernice Worden's complete head and heart, a belt made from human nipples, multiple noses and a pair of lips, a lampshade made from human skin. Every item, a testament to Gein's distorted reality. Every artifact, a chilling narrative of obsession and control. How did investigators uncover the House of Horrors? When Frank Worden alerted authorities, the investigation began in full force. Sheriff's deputies were initially unprepared for what they would find. Upon searching the Gein farm, the police were met with sights that defied imagination. Every room revealed objects crafted from human remains. Furniture, household items, even tools, each embedded with human tissue, testified to Gein's years of secret activities. Detectives took meticulous notes. They photographed every item. They collected evidence for forensic analysis. Each item had to be handled carefully, not only for legal reasons, but because of the psychological impact on the officers. Many officers reportedly suffered trauma simply witnessing the scene. The horror of what Gein had done lingered long after the initial discovery. Who were the real victims behind Gein's madness? To understand the full scope of Gein's crimes, we must remember the women he took from the world. Mary Hogan, bar owner, 40s, known for her independent spirit, murdered in 1954. Body mutilated, items preserved as keepsakes. Bernice Worden, hardware store owner, 58, respected member of the community, murdered in 1957. Body dismembered, stored, and used for ritualistic crafting of objects. While only these two murders are confirmed, Gein confessed to grave robbing, mutilation, and theft of corpses dating back several years. The forensic evidence suggested a pattern, a ritual, and a compulsion that extended far beyond these two victims. What did forensics reveal about the unimaginable truth? Forensic teams faced unique challenges. No crime scene had prepared them for furniture, lampshades, and clothing made from human skin. The bodies were decomposed, altered, and fragmented, complicating identification. Anthropologists were called in to determine age, sex, and cause of death of remains. Dental records and skeletal analysis helped match items to missing persons. The meticulous cataloging of evidence would later aid the prosecution and become a benchmark in forensic science courses. How did America react to the Plainfield Butcher? News of Gein's crimes shocked America. The media dubbed him the Plainfield Butcher. The horrifying details captured the public imagination. Newspapers printed sketches, crime scene photos, and interviews. Talk shows debated the psychology behind the crimes. Communities across the nation were gripped with fear. What could drive a man to such acts? And more importantly, could it happen anywhere, to anyone? Was Edward Gein truly insane, or just pure evil? In November 1957, Gein was formally charged with first-degree murder. He pled insanity, claiming he was incapable of controlling his actions. Psychiatrists diagnosed him with schizophrenia, confirming severe mental illness. He was initially found unfit to stand trial and was sent to the Central State Hospital for the criminally insane. By 1968, doctors deemed him competent. During the trial, Gein claimed Bernice Worden's death was accidental. He could not recall the details clearly, an indication of dissociation and mental fragmentation. Ultimately, he was found guilty, but the psychiatric review declared him not guilty by reason of insanity. He spent the remainder of his life institutionalized, never free, but never executed. How did Edward Gein's crimes change horror forever? Edward Gein's crimes would inspire decades of horror media. His grotesque acts became the basis for films, novels, and urban legends. Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Silence of the Lambs, all drew from the truth of Gein's horrors. They asked audiences to confront a reality where the line between sanity and madness, normalcy and horror, is terrifyingly thin. Gein's story is a stark reminder. Evil is not always loud, chaotic, or obvious. Sometimes it lurks in the quiet, the isolated, the ordinary. Hey, if you've watched the video till this point, first of all, thank you so much. It really means a lot. If you're enjoying the story, go ahead and drop a like right now and leave me a sweet comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. I love knowing that. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps me keep bringing you more true crime stories just like this one. Imagine a seemingly ordinary man, quiet, unassuming, but within his home and farm hid horrors that could make any horror movie pale in comparison. This is the story of Edward Theodore Gein, known to the world as the Plainfield Butcher. He wasn't just a murderer. He was a man who dug up graves and crafted keepsakes from human bones and skin. He confessed to killing two women, Mary Hogan, a bar owner in 1954, and Bernice Worden, a hardware store owner in 1957. By 1957, his crimes had shocked the entire nation. But how did it all begin? And who was the man capable of such atrocities? Edward Theodore Gein was born on August 27, 1906. He was the second of two sons of George and Augusta Gein, with an older brother named Henry. His mother, Augusta, was extremely religious. She constantly preached to her sons that all women were inherently lustful and instruments of the devil. Every afternoon, Bible readings were mandatory. George, his father, was an alcoholic and violent. Edward would wince and ring in his ears whenever his father struck him. The fear and abuse left a deep mark on young Edward's mind. A little boy, deprived of love and safety, left only with fear and tales of sin and punishment. From here, the darkness inside him quietly began to take shape. The family eventually moved from La Crosse to a 155-acre farm in Plainfield, Wisconsin. This isolation became a mental prison for Edward. He lived in a small room next to the kitchen. Small, dark, and lonely. He began reading pulp magazines and adventure stories, particularly those about cannibals and Nazi atrocities. He was especially fascinated by stories of Ilse Koch, the infamous Witch of Buchenwald, who allegedly made lampshades and other items from the skin of her prisoners. These stories planted a twisted fantasy in his mind. By 1951, Gein was receiving federal agricultural subsidies. On the outside, life seemed calm, but inside, dark and terrifying visions were taking root. 1954. The murder of Mary Hogan, a bar owner. Gein later confessed to this killing, but it was only the beginning. On the morning of November 16, 1957, hardware store owner Bernice Worden disappeared. The store truck was seen leaving around 9:30 a.m. Few customers came that day. At 5 p.m., Worden's son Frank arrived at the store. When he opened the cash register, he noticed blood stains on the floor. Something was terribly wrong. That evening, Gein was apprehended, but what the police found at his farm was a horror the world had never seen. In a shed, they discovered Bernice Worden's dismembered body, hanging upside down by the ankles tied to a crossbar. The torso had been arranged like a deer. She had been shot with a .22 caliber rifle, but that was only the beginning. At Gein's home, authorities found human bones and body parts, a trash can made of human skin, chairs covered in human skin, skulls mounted on bedposts, female skulls and bowls made from human crania, a corset made from a woman's torso, leggings made from human leg skin, masks made from women's facial skin, Mary Hogan's face mask and skull, Bernice Worden's head and heart, a belt made from human nipples, 4 noses, a pair of lips, a lampshade made from human facial skin. Every single item, a chilling keepsake, a testament to the twisted mind of Edward Gein. On November 21, 1957, Gein faced first-degree murder charges. He tried to plead insanity. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia. The first trial was held without a jury. Gein was sent to the Central State Hospital for the criminally insane. By 1968, doctors determined he was competent to stand trial. During the proceedings, Gein claimed Worden's death was accidental. He could not remember the details of that morning. On November 14, 1968, the judge found him guilty. However, after a psychiatric review, he was declared not guilty by reason of insanity. Gein spent the rest of his life in a mental institution. Only Bernice Worden's case went to trial. Mary Hogan's murder was admitted by Gein as well. Today, Edward Gein's name is immortal in horror films and literature. His crimes inspired movies like Psycho, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Silence of the Lambs. He showed the world that sometimes truth can be far more terrifying than fiction. Was Gein merely insane? Or did the darkness within him exist, lurking in all of us? Think about it and fear it.